Hello everybody, and welcome to the final webinar in my 5 top IELTS tips series. And you're very welcome here today to this session. And in this session today, I'm going to tell you about the things that you must address and do in order to be successful at Band 7 and 8 in your exam. For those of you who don't know me, a quick introduction. My name's Bernie Wall and I'm an IELTS trainer. I've been training IELTS students for around 20 years, most of them at Band 7 and 8. And I also work a lot with students who've taken the exam more than once, sometimes once or twice, sometimes many times, and help students to get the band that they want. And today we're going to look at, we've gone through some of the tips for the different parts of the test, but today we're going to look at what makes the difference between getting the band that you want in the exam and not getting the band that you want. So let's have a look at how that works and what are the things that you need to do. Now, I've worked with many students over the years, and I've seen many of them get their band and move on with their lives. And I've seen some who don't get their band, and in some cases it's because they're just not quite ready and there are more steps to take, and it's different for every student. So some people can do it very quickly and some people just need a few more steps. And often it's to do with your English language level, or it could be to do with your study skills or how you organize your study. And those are the things that I want to talk to you about today. So if you've tried many times and you're still not getting your band, then you're absolutely in the right place, because I hope that some of the things I say today will help you to move on, to address the areas where you're still finding challenges, and then to move on and get to the point where you know when you take the exam that everything is at Band 7 level. So I'm just going to share my screen with you now so that we can start the slide presentation, and then I'll go through the points. Okay, so this is my IELTS success system, and today we're looking at tip 5, which is how to really make sure that you get your Band 7 or 8. And this is the final tip that I'm sharing with you today. How can you guarantee that when you take the exam, you'll get the band? I know from the many students that I've taught that some people have a study method and an approach to the exam that makes them successful. And others perhaps don't have this approach, and maybe it's that causes them not to get the band. So that's one of the main factors. And because of the experience I've had with different students, watching what they do, looking at good habits, looking at things which are perhaps sometimes a little bit chaotic, I can see what kind of process works and gets people to the band they want. And I put all of this into the various programs and courses that I offer students. So this process that helps students be successful is included in all the work that I do with Band 7 and 8 students. So there are some things that I feel make up a successful progress to IELTS. And so these are the things I've observed over the past 20 years, and I include them in the programs I write because I think they're really important. So the first thing I've observed is that those students who have a good plan, now I don't mean a plan for writing, I mean a plan for their study, are often the successful ones because they are organized and they know where they're going. They have a planned journey to the exam. So this is the first critical thing that you need to have. If you're random, if you're chaotic, if you wake up in the morning and say, what shall I do today? Then I think your chances of getting a successful outcome are less. So you have to have an organized plan to get you from where you are today to your exam date. The second vital thing is that you need to prepare well. You need to set yourself lots of goals. Now, those goals are going to be typically a daily goal. They're also going to be a goal for each part of the test. And they're going to be an overall goal that will help you get to the day of your exam. The other thing is focus. I find that successful students are always very focused. When I talk to them and ask them about their challenges, they know exactly what those challenges are. They can tell me, I have a problem with multiple choice questions in reading, or I have a problem with maps in listening, or I'm not quite sure of the vocabulary I have to use in, you know, process in task 1. Very, very specific. They know exactly where they're losing marks, where they're finding difficulties. And as a result of knowing that, they are able to focus on those areas and improve them. And that's how you move yourself up towards Band 7 and 8. So you need to know this, and you need to be able to focus on this. They also have a certain mindset. They have a mindset which is confident, which says, I know that this is what I'm good at, and that if I am able to resolve this problem, then I'm going to get my band. So the mindset is very positive. They've also made a decision that they are going to get Band 7 and 8. And once you make that decision that I'm going to get it, and this is what I have to do, then you lose a lot of the doubt. If you have doubts in your mind, and those doubts can come out in different ways. So if you're not doubtful about whether you'll get it, then you've made a decision to get it, and this will give you a very confident mindset. Now that might sound a little strange, but actually I would say when you get to the exam, if everything else is in place, if you know you can get 35 out of 40 in your reading and your listening, and you know that you can do Band 7 in your writing, and you know your speaking is going to get you at least Band 7, then the one thing that will make or break your exam is your level of confidence. And that depends on the mindset you have, not only going into the exam, but going into your final preparation before that date. So it's really important. And finally, your confidence level. And as I said before, the mindset leads to the confidence. So these are the 5 things that I've observed with students who get their band. Prepared, they have a plan, they focus on what they need to do to improve their skills, they have a mindset which helps them to be assured that they will get the exam, and they have a confidence level that will take them through that day of the exam when you need a lot of stamina and a lot of positive thinking. Okay, so what is the most important thing about getting your band? You might be surprised at this, but the most important thing about getting your band is you. Sometimes students ask me, if they work with me, can I guarantee that they will get their band? Now, the answer to that is, I cannot guarantee anything that happens in that exam, because that is up to the student. It's up to you. When you go into that exam room, what you do in the exam room is completely out of my hands. It's in your hands. But what I can guarantee is that when I work with students, I will give you all the tools you need so that when you go into that room, there is no reason why you shouldn't get your band. Now, when people ask me, can you guarantee, it worries me because it's as if they're handing the control of that exam over to me. And I have no control over performance in an exam. That's up to you. I'm there to provide support and advice and to train you and teach you about the techniques that will make sure that you have all the tools you need to get that score. But at the end of the day, everything about that exam is down to you. So when I talked before about a positive mindset, and making a decision to get the band, this is the kind of thing I mean. So if you're asking me if I can guarantee your score, that means there are doubts in your mind about your ability to do it. And that will go against any work that you're doing. So the most important thing about getting your band is you and your outlook on the exam and the way that you are looking at the exam and the way that you are prepared and focused on that exam. So it's all about you. It's not about the examiner, it's not about your teacher, it's not about the books or the tests or the test center or any of those other things. It's only about you. It's about your work, your ambition, and your performance. So at the end of the day, we can only support you and advise you, but you have to do the work and you have to be the one that takes the exam, performs well, and gets the score. So it's really important to realize that and not to blame other people if things don't go wrong. And one of the things I've observed with students who are very positive about the exam and get the exam is that they realize that this is in their hands, not in anybody else's hands. Okay, so you are the single factor that can turn it either way. If you lose confidence, your score may go down. If you are positive and you have confidence and you're very, very ambitious for this score and you do everything that you can systematically and in a focused way, then you're likely to get the score that you want, providing your ability matches the score that you need. We have a saying in English, you can take a horse to water, but you cannot make it drink. So everything that I do as a trainer or your other teachers do, things that the books do, things that the examiners are trying to do, and the whole process of IELTS can do everything to make a good situation for you to pass the test. But at the end of the day, you are the only one that can do that. So I've made quite a big thing of this, but I think it's important to realize that it is all about you. Okay, so I wanted to introduce 3 students. You may have already met them because I interviewed them quite recently, and you can find these interviews on YouTube. Lyra, who got band 7 with a band 8, I think it was, in listening, and that was the area that she found challenging. Aruna, who came out with 7.5 in writing, and Sophia, who also got 8 in listening, and they've all had incredible scores, far above what they wanted. And I wanted to introduce them to you because they represent all of the things I've said to you so far. They all worked in a very systematic way. They all pretty soon realized the challenges that they had, and they worked even more on those challenges to make sure that they were able to overcome them. They worked systematically, and for some of them it took a long time. For Sophia, she was working for 10 years. Now, I'm not saying it's going to take you 10 years, and she wasn't working consistently for 10 years, but she took a long time, and eventually she got the score she wanted, and she got far more than the score she wanted. Lyra was working for perhaps nearly 2 years, but she worked systematically every day. Aruna, the same. He works systematically every day. And if you want to listen to how they worked, then you can go to those interviews on YouTube, and they will explain exactly the process that they took, and they also give lots of very good advice. Now, all of them worked with me through the IELTS success system that I've been talking about over the last 5 weeks. And that does give you a systematic approach, which helps you to get yourself focused and organized. But by being in that mindset, by working to that system, then they were successful. And if you listen to their interviews, you can see how exciting that was on the day that they got the scores that they got. But those scores did not happen overnight. They were the result of a lot of, not hard work, because I know all of you work hard, but it was more focused work that helped to make the difference. So please go and listen to these 3 students and what they have to say about the best way to get the IELTS score you want. Okay, so let's get into some practicalities now. So how can you really make sure that you are on track for the score that you want? The first and really most important thing, and this is the thing that I do in all of my programs, I always give an assessment, because unless you know where you are, you don't know where you're going. If you want to use your GPS to travel, you need to know not only your destination, but also your starting point. So without a starting point, how can you know which direction to go in? So assessing your English language level, I'm talking about now, and your IELTS level, the 2 things are connected, of course, then you can't possibly plan properly. So get yourself a test. There are lots of tests online. Or you can just do a complete IELTS test and see where you come out. If you've recently taken the test and got a recent score, then you know where you are at the moment. You know which areas you need to work on. But it's vital that you know your starting point before you start to plan your journey. Part of this is knowing what's challenging. You'll have a gut feeling. You'll probably know, oh, this question, if you see the question, your heart sinks and you think, oh no, why, I don't like this question. I hear students say to me all the time, I hope I don't get this question in the exam. What if you get that question 3 times? What if you get yes, no, not given in every reading, and sometimes twice in a reading, and this is happening more and more? You should know if that happens, and that's your weak point, that you are going to be challenged to get band 7, because if you cannot do yes, no, not given and you get 4 yes, no, not given exercises, that is going to affect your score. So don't cross your fingers and hope you don't get it. What you have to do is work on yes, no, not given until it's no longer a problem for you. And the same applies to every area in the exam which you find challenging. You cannot ignore it. You cannot ignore it. You have to make sure that you are good at it. And when you go into the exam and you are good at every type of exercise and you know that you can get most of them right, then you know that you will get your score. I was speaking to a student just this morning, and she was saying to me, I don't worry about the reading because I know that I can get 30 marks correct. And when I go through the exam, as soon as I've got my 30 marks and I know they're correct, I know I've got band 7. Now that is incredible, to be in the exam and know you've got band 7. But that's what will happen if you work on your challenging areas. You'll know in the exam. You might think, okay, I've just got 7, but you'll know you've got 7. In fact, that student, interesting in her last one, got 9 in reading. Imagine that. But she knew. She said, I knew I'd got 7, but I didn't expect to get 9. And that's the kind of confidence that I want all of you to have while you're sitting in that exam. Okay. If you're not sure of your level, if you're not sure of your challenges, if you're not sure what to do about your challenges, there's only one thing you should be doing, and that is ask questions. Ask people who know about this. Don't just worry. Don't just cross your fingers. Don't just, hope. You must ask questions and say, how can I turn this around? How can I change this? And the successful students do this. They don't just sit there thinking, oh dear, I hope I don't get this question. They go out and they say, look, show me how to do this question so that I can always get it right. And then you practice. Knowing is not enough. You have to practice. Get advice. You can find advice all over. If you come on my programs, I give you lots of advice. I'm always there at the end of an email, or if necessary, in a Skype call, so that we can look at this and go through it and say, right, this is what you did and this is what you should have done. But if you work with other teachers, ask your teachers. Teachers are there for that. Use them. If you're working completely on your own, which I don't advise always, but if you are, then go. There are lots of websites out there that will help you. But find one where you can ask for advice, where you can ask questions. Get support. Getting support is a real game changer in IELTS. Doing it by yourself in isolation is a very lonely way of preparing for this exam. If you have support, and that support from a teacher, fantastic. If you want to come and work with me, I would love to do that. But get support from other students at least who are on the same journey. And if you, going back to those students I mentioned earlier, if you listen to their video interviews, you will hear that each one of them found the minute that they had support from other students, that was a turning point for them. So get support on forums, on sites where there are communities. Look for somewhere where you can get advice and support. And finally, be positive. If you're always thinking, I can't, this is never going to happen, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It will never happen. You have to have a positive outlook. You have to have a positive mindset. You have to make a decision that this is going to happen for you. And once you've made that decision and you put in place your plan, then you're on a journey that will eventually lead you to your destination. But a positive mindset is really important. And going back to getting support, if you're in a group with other IELTS students who are looking for Band 7, then they will help you to be positive and stay positive. It's really important to try and get some kind of community around you. And your friends and your family, I know they will support you and they will want to help you, but they are not the same as having the support from somebody who is doing exactly the same journey. When you say to your family, I'm really struggling with yes, no, not given, they don't understand what that means. But when you say to another IELTS student, say, I'm really struggling with yes, no, not given, they know how you're feeling and they can share that with you. And if they're good at yes, no, not given, they can help you too. So these things are really, really important and I cannot stress them enough. Okay. So the things that you really, really must do and do systematically and do every day in order to be successful are these. If your English is Band 5 and you want Band 7, I'm sorry, it is not going to happen quickly. So if you want Band 7, your English has to be at Band 7. This is a test of English. It's not a test of IELTS. So the first thing you must accept and you must acknowledge and you must check is that your English level is aligned with the band that you want. And when people tell me I got Band 4.5, I got Band 5, but I need Band 7.5, I know that that is going to take a long time. And you have to be realistic about that. So this is the most important thing. Right, make sure you know about the test. I was speaking to a student this morning about writing, and they did not know that in Band 7 you had to use complex sentences. They did not know that in Band 7 you had to use a variety of linking words. Now, if you don't know that, you're not going to produce that, and therefore, by default, you're not going to get Band 7. Make sure you look at the band descriptors for speaking. You look at the band descriptors for writing, because if you don't know what's expected, how can you produce that? And if you don't produce that, you're not going to get the band you want. So find out everything about the test that you need to know. And then you make sure you include those things in your work. Create a plan. You can't go on a journey without a plan for your destination. So you need to create a plan that's going to take you from today to the day of your exam. Set a timetable. So your plan will cover the different parts of the test, the things that you need to focus on more, the areas that you perhaps find challenging, and the score that you want to achieve day by day. Don't just say, okay, I'm getting 25, I need 30. How am I going to do that? Say, right, today I've got 25. In 3 days, I want to get 26. In another 3 days, I want to get 27, and so on. And that's a very detailed plan. That's your goal. And then you work out how you're going to do that. And how you do it is by looking at the areas where you're losing marks. Set yourself a timetable and be realistic. Have you really got 10 hours a day to practice? Maybe you can only spend 20 minutes, but that 20 minutes can be used very valuably. So set yourself a timetable, try and make that a daily thing, and put down everything that you are going to do each day in that timetable. Get your tools together. Make sure you have a dictionary. Make sure you have a grammar book. Make sure you have some IELTS materials that you can work with. Make sure that you are working to a good level every day. Set yourself targets and then assess those targets each day when you finish. It's got to be systematic. Okay, follow your goals. If you set yourself a goal and you're going to do half an hour minimum every day, then don't abandon that goal. Follow it. Make sure you do it. Going step by step and moving closer and closer to your targets is the way that you do it. It's a skill. Learning a language is a skill, and you learn that skill just like you learn any other skill, like driving. The more you practice, the more you focus on the areas that you need, the better you will become. Or like playing tennis. You know, if you're good at hitting the ball, but it doesn't land within the square, you've got to practice that. So that's how you do it. It's a skill, and skills only improve when you focus and practice. And keep focused on your goals. Don't abandon them. Don't say, oh, well, today I don't feel like doing listening, so I'm not going to do any. If you've told yourself today is listening, then unless you're ill or unless something comes up, try and keep focused on it and do it. This is what I find with the students that follow, that I've taught and who've been successful. They follow their goals, they follow their plan. They are very systematic. And in my IELTS success system, you get daily emails which keep you on track, which tell you what to do each day so that you don't miss a day and you're moving slowly, slowly towards your target. Okay, so as well as the things that you do, there are some things that really you must not do. Lots and lots of students use the test as a preparation. That means they just keep taking the test over and over and over in the hope that one day it will be their turn to pass. Now, there are dangers inherent in this. If you only use the test as your preparation, it's going to be very, very expensive. Secondly, it's going to take a long time. And thirdly, it's going to get more and more stressful. So don't use the test as preparation. Use the test as the end of your journey, as your destination. And don't book a test until you know that you're ready for the exam. So don't book a test if you're really not ready. If you book a test expecting to be ready, and then when you get to the test you feel you're not quite, then there are two options. You can either cancel it if it's within the time, and if you can't cancel it, then take it with a view to using it as an assessment of your level. But if you book a test and you've no idea whether you're ready or not, I think that's probably a mistake, because you need to prepare yourself first. Okay, Somebody sent me an email the other day asking me if there was any way they could get band 7.5 in IELTS without sitting the test. Now, the answer to that is a very strong no. Of course not. And why should there be? Because this test is a test of your English ability for English language in English university or English speaking university courses, for working in an English language environment, for living in an English language speaking country. So there is no way you can get 7.5 in IELTS without demonstrating. That's a silly shortcut. So don't try and look for shortcuts or ways around. There isn't one, and nor should there be. Because if your level of English is not good enough to take an a degree in an English-speaking country, then you shouldn't be taking that degree in an English-speaking country, because you won't be successful, because it's not fair to ask you to pay that money when you're not able to take that course. So these exams are there for a reason. And finding shortcuts and looking for shortcuts means that you're not focusing on what you have to do. And if we go right back to the slide where I said the most important thing about your IELTS success is you, then finding shortcuts means you don't trust yourself. And if you don't trust yourself, you haven't got the confidence to do this. So you have to bite the bullet and prepare and take the exam and perform at the band level that you are looking for. There are no shortcuts, there are no ways around. And sometimes that can be very frustrating. And I work with lots of students who try very hard and do their best work, and still sometimes it doesn't quite come out, especially if you need something like band 7 in every part. And quite often it takes a few times for that to come together. But you still have to keep pushing and practicing and focusing. Don't blame other people. Again, that means that you're not taking responsibility. And if you don't take responsibility, you're not going to get there, I promise you. People blame the examiner. The examiner wasn't very good. Sometimes there can be issues around test results. And sometimes when you have a remark, some students get an increase, but it's rare. If you're blaming the examiner, if you're blaming your teachers, if you're blaming the test center or anything else, then you're taking the responsibility away from yourself and putting it on someone else. And I'm sorry, but the students who are successful take full responsibility for their test every time. Every time. So if you're not taking responsibility for your test and you're not focusing on what you do, then there's a danger that you won't get your score. So take responsibility and don't blame other people. Some students study erratically. They set a plan in motion, they know what they want to do, but they say, okay, I'll do it tomorrow, or I'll do it next week, or I haven't really got time today, or I need to do this instead. And if your study is erratic, then your skill is not going to build. In order to build your skill day by day, you have to study in a systematic way. That doesn't mean you have to spend hours and hours. If you do 20 minutes a day, that is fine. You could do one reading passage, or you could do one listening passage, or you could do a task 1. It's still very valuable. And the last thing is, don't just go through test papers. Because what happens is 5, and on another you might get 25, and on the next one you might get 27, and on the next one you might get 32. It's not consistent. And the reason is because each paper contains a different combination of exercises. And if you have an exercise type where you're struggling or where you're challenged, then if you're not addressing that exercise type, then everything is going to be inconsistent. So just going through test papers over and over is not a very successful way of study. Test papers should be just before your exam. So that if you just do test papers, when you get to the exam, or the week before, or the 2 weeks before, you've got no more material to practice. So study the different types of exercise and the things you're asked to do. Don't just go through test papers. And also spending, 3 hours a day going through a test paper is not an effective way to study. You'd be better off just looking at practice section 3 in the reading and going through that, or doing some listening practice which is not IELTS related, so that you can improve your vocabulary or improve your listening skills. So try not to do these things. In fact, don't do these things, because they are not serving you, they are not helping you. And the last thing is, don't give up. If you really, really have a dream and you really want that dream to come true, then don't give up. There is a way. There is always a way. But sometimes that way may be that you have to really knuckle down and do more practice and look at where you are and say, well, I haven't done enough writing practice, so my writing's not going to improve. So I really need to go back. Even though it's difficult and I don't like doing it, I have to do it, because that's the only way that I'll improve. So be realistic, but don't give up your dream. There's always a way, and you may just need more steps to get there. Okay, so I mentioned being systematic. IELTS is not creative. It's very much a formula. It's very much a process. So with the reading, there's a process you have to follow. With the listening, there's a process. So you need to understand the process, you need to practice it. And that's what will get you there. If you sit down in the writing and say, I'll just wait for the ideas to come, that's a creative process. And IELTS is not creative. IELTS is more formulaic, because the examiners want to see certain things. They want to see organized paragraphs. They want to see good punctuation. They want to see good vocabulary. They want to see good grammar. They want to see complex sentences. They want to see academic style. And that's not creative. So you have to be systematic, and you have to learn the process, and you have to learn the game that IELTS is. So if you play the game according to the rules, you'll win and you'll get your score. Yeah, I mentioned this a couple of times already. Doing 20 minutes a day is better than doing 4 hours on a Saturday. So look at what time you've got available and then maximize that time, and preferably every day. If you can't manage every day, then say, okay, I'm going to do 4 days, or I'm going to do 3 days. The more you do, the better it will be. But doing 10 hours a day is ridiculous, because it's just going to make you too tired. Don't overdo it. If you overload, then there's confusion. And when there's confusion, you get panicked. And when there's panic, you can't see the answers. So it doesn't serve you to overdo it. Don't overload. I've worked with students who've done 10 hours a day, and it didn't help them, because they didn't have time for the information to bed down in their brain and consolidate in their memory. So 20 minutes, 30 minutes, if you can manage that every day, is perfect. Get advice if you're not sure. I mentioned this before. And whatever you do, stick to your plan. If you stick to your plan, then you will be making progress day by day. If you don't stick to your plan, it will become chaotic. And these are the things that all the students that I've worked with who have been successful have done. I've observed them doing it, and I've given this to them in a systematic way when they work with me on any of my courses and any of my programs. We do it in a systematic way, so that there is no excuse not to have this, this systematic approach to the practice. And be focused. Okay, you have to be able to do each type of question, because you don't know what's coming up in the exam. So if you just cross your fingers and hope it's all going to be gap filling or summaries, and then you get yes, no, not given, or headings that you're not good at, you're not going to perform well in that exam. So you have to be able to do each type of question equally well. And if there are some you can't do, then you focus on them. You practice them more. Don't say, well, last time I got a lower score in reading, so this time I'm just going to focus on reading. I see this happen all the time, where students spend a month focusing on reading. They don't do listening, they don't do writing, and in the exam, the reading score is fantastic, and the writing and listening scores have dropped. And this happens. You have to keep all the balls in the air. So, okay, if reading is your challenge, spend a bit more time on reading, but do not, at your peril, ignore the other parts of the exam. Don't just do test practice. We've already spoken about that. You have to take out the small areas where you need to practice and not just going through a whole test. Going through a whole test is just like driving around, preparing for the driving and not addressing the fact that your gear changes are not so smooth, or that your braking is not so smooth, or that you can't park the car. You have to look at those detailed parts of the exam on their own so that you can improve them. And make sure you practice. Knowing is not enough. You have to practice. So you may know that, you have to underline keywords. But if you don't practice underlining keywords, when you get into the exam, you're not going to be able to do that quickly. This is all about being so practiced that you can do it with speed. And don't just read about it. I remember about 2 years ago, a student of mine who was challenged with writing. And he was working with me on an intensive program, 5-week intensive program. And I was not getting any writing from him. And I kept saying, if you don't send me your writing, I can't correct it, and you can't improve with your writing. And this was the area he needed because he was getting 6.5 and not 7. And every time I got the same reply, I found this website about task 2 and I'm going to read it. And I said, don't read the website, do the writing. And it just kept going like this. He wouldn't do the writing. And he took the exam and again got 6.5. If you don't do it, it won't improve. Reading about it is not enough. Reading about it is only a third of the process. 2/3 is practical. So knowledge is not enough without the practice. And that's really important. Okay, so to summarize, in order to get Band 7 and 8 success, what is it that you have to do? First, it's up to you, it's in your hands. You can get support, advice, but at the end of the day, it's up to you. I'm going to get Band 7 next time and I'm going to do everything it takes. So if your teacher advises you to do 20 minutes or 30 minutes every day, do it. If your plan says I'm going to do 45 minutes on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, do it. Because if you don't do it, you haven't made the decision. Make sure your English is at the right level. If it isn't, you are not going to get your band, not with the best will in the world. So if your writing is not good enough for Band 7, you need to address your language skills for writing and your writing skills. If your speaking is not good enough for Band 7, you need to do more speaking practice. Not IELTS speaking practice, but just general speaking practice. So make sure your English level is good enough. Create a plan. Without a plan, you have no way of getting to your destination. Find out what's stopping you from getting Band 7 or Band 8 and work on those areas and give them some focus. Whatever you focus on improves. This is a universal truth. Whatever you focus on improves, and it absolutely is the case. Get the support you need. If you need support, go out and find it and get it. Don't just sit there worrying. That's not going to help you. There's lots of support out there, especially with the internet now. There's lots of support. And all of us as teachers who are online are there to give you the support that you need. Just ask for it. So, if you do all of those things, then you should be successful. But the key thing is, are you ready for Band 7? Now, getting Band 7 is not that easy, and the step up if you're on 6.5 to 7 is quite a big step up. The steps from Band 3 up to Band 6, 6.5 are small steps, but the step from Band 6.5 to 7 is quite a big step, and then from 7 to 8 is an even bigger step. And it takes time to do that, or you need to get support. And I am here to help you if you want it. Remember that if you don't get the score that you want, this is going to be costly. It's costly in terms of money, because you have to take the test many times, you might have to travel a lot, you might have to stay overnight. It's costly in terms of your time, because you're always putting off the dream and putting off your goal because you have to retake the exam. And the biggest loss is in your stress and confidence, because when your confidence levels start to drop, then it takes quite a long time to get back on top. So that's why it's really important to get the right advice and the right support. And the students that I've worked with, the ones I showed you before, and many, many more students, have all got to where they wanted to get to because they got the right support and advice for them, because they followed a systematic system and they focused on the areas where they needed the most help. And in the end, they were successful. And 80% of my students, certainly in the last year or two, have got this score. And in fact, most of them have got a higher score than the one that they were originally seeking. And because I understand what students need to pass the exam, because as well as being a trainer for 20 years, I was also an IELTS examiner myself for 4 or 5 years, then I know what is required to get the score that you want. And I've put all of that information into my IELTS success system, which is IELTS step by step. It's a step-by-step approach to getting the score that you want. And because it's all laid out for you with daily emails giving you the lesson of the day, it means that you are systematic and focused in the way you study. So you're doing that work every day. So the course is 12 weeks. You get a lesson every day. But the great thing is that you get the whole course at the beginning. So if you want to go faster, you can. You can also go back and revise things you're not sure, some of the areas that you find challenging. I also provide you with the support of other students on the same journey through my private Facebook group and also my private Skype groups, so that you can practice speaking and you can post your writing in the Facebook group, as well as ask questions about anything that you're not sure about. I also provide email advice, so if you're stuck and you need to ask a question, you can simply send an email and then somebody will help you with that. You have over 300 hours of lessons of exercises and advice and techniques within this program. There are a couple of bonuses as well. I give you a 1-year registration on my Gap Fillers site, which has 8,000 pages of English language exercises in grammar, vocabulary, listening, reading, and writing. So if you need more help on any aspect, there's plenty of content there for you to practice. And I'll also give you a batch of essays that I have corrected that have come from successful students, so that you can see the areas that you need to improve on and the kinds of mistakes that you need to avoid. And the final bonus is that if you move from this program onto a more intensive teacher-led program, I'll give you a 20% discount if you're already on my IELTS success system, IELTS step by step. And the best thing about this is that I have a really special offer for you if you're on this webinar. And that is that normally this program is $197, but for the next 3 days, for anybody who signs up, you will get it for just $97. So that, with all the content that I'm giving you, is really good value for money. And remember that it's important to have all those things that I mentioned today about a systematic approach, focusing on the areas that you're struggling with, having the support of other students on the same journey, and also having the opportunity to get support and advice from trained IELTS teachers, which would be myself, and I have also a team of other teachers who will look at anything you post in the Facebook group and give you advice and give you any correction that you need on that writing. So don't lose money by taking the exam over and over. Don't worry about the exam. Get the support you need. Get the advice you need. Make sure that you are focused, that you take responsibility, and this program will help you to do all of those things. So everything you need to get the band you want is contained in there. And it is absolutely fundamental to getting the high band. It is the key. It includes everything I've spoken about today. And remember that for $97, you can sign up to this program for the next 3 days and get all the support that you want to get the high band that you are looking for. So go across to this website, http://www.ieltslearningtips.com/IELTS success system, and you can see that on the screen there. So all you need to do to get this is to go to that website, and it will tell you exactly what you have to do. And I would love to see you on this program. But if you are not looking for that kind of support, then what I hope you will do is find some support. Don't do this alone, because going it alone takes time. And if you really get the support and advice that you need and have a really step-by-step, focused and systematic approach, there is no reason why, by taking this responsibility, you will not be successful in your exam. I'm sorry this has gone on a little longer than I had planned, but I hope that you found that useful. And I hope to see you on my IELTS success system, IELTS step by step. Remember, you have 3 days in order to get the very special price of $97. So this is the end of the current series of 5 top tips. They're all available for you to look at for a short period. So if you haven't seen any of them, then you can find them on the YouTube channel. And I hope that you will be able to put these into practice and be very successful in your IELTS exam. Thank you. Bye-bye.